Come on down, ma'am. And raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Have a seat right up here. Ask your question, counsel.
Can you state your name, please?
Kathryn Fox?
And Ms. Fox, do you know Lynlee Renick?
Yes.
And did you know Ben Renick?
Yes.
How did you know them?
I babysat their children.
About how long did you babysit for them?
Approximately 5 years.
And did you babysit on a regular basis for them?
Yes.
About how often would you say?
Typically about once a week.
I'm sorry, say that again?
About once a week.
Do you have any idea what they were out doing when you were babysitting?
Sometimes they would watch a movie, sometimes they would go out to eat, shopping, different things.
Just kind of like a date night for
Yeah.
two of them? And were you asked to babysit on June 8th of 2017?
Yes.
Do you have any idea where they were going that night?
I do not.
What time were you supposed to be there on the 8th?
Around 6.
Around 6 o'clock
Yes.
initially?
Yes, I believe so.
At some point, did you receive some messages from Lynlee Renick?
Yes.
And were those text messages?
They were text messages and then later a phone call.
May I approach it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna show.
You know what, from now on, that's a good, you all don't have to ask me to approach, just go up there and,
Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna show you what have been marked State's Exhibits 100 through 104. Can you just flip through those and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes.
And are those photographs of your telephone?
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibits 100 through 104.
any objection? Who's doing it? You doing this, Mr. Hessman? Okay, 100 through 104 for the state be admitted.
Judge, is that off? Because I have a photograph up here that's not actually in it yet. Before I get to that,
The screen. Sorry about
What do you want to do?
I need to switch in the PowerPoint to the appropriate exhibit, and before I do
Just for her to see it?
yes,
And it's not 100 or through 104?
correct.
Okay, let me see if I
I need to move there. Is what I need to do.
okay, just a minute.
I think he has to turn it also.
Okay, so you all ought to be able to see it, you ought to be able to see it, and she can see it, and I can see it. Okay?
Okay, perfect.
Right, there's nothing, I can't see that TV, there's nothing on that, right? Okay, all right.
Board meeting, Judge, if you want to turn it on.
Well, you didn't, what is this?
That's State's Exhibit 100.
100? Okay, so that's admitted. Is it on there now? Okay.
Ms. Fox, can you see that on the screen in
Yes.
front of you? And that's State's Exhibit 100. Can you tell us what we're looking at?
It's a screenshot from my phone that has Lynlee Renick's contact information.
And then 101. What is that?
It's the same thing, it just has her mobile number on that one.
102. Can you tell us what that is?
But yeah, that is a screenshot of.
I swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Seat right up here.
Can you state your name, please?
Deputy Harley Alt,
How are you employed, sir?
with Montgomery County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you been a deputy in Montgomery County?
since May of 2016.
Were you working in that same capacity on June 8th of 2017?
Yes,
And on that date, were you dispatched to Renick Reptiles?
yes I was.
What was the nature of the call?
We were called for a man down, believed to be a snake attack.
And a man lying in a pool of blood, do you recall that?
Correct.
Montgomery County's pretty rural, is it not?
Yes, it is.
And can you just briefly describe this area of Renick Reptiles? What's the property like?
The property, there's a couple buildings, there's a house, at least one house, and there's a, where Renick Reptiles was, it's kind of an outbuilding.
And sits on a fair amount of acreage, is that fair?
Yes, it does.
When you were, prior to your arrival at Renick Reptiles, were you given information that there was possibly a 500-pound anaconda on the loose?
Yes, I was.
So when you arrive, what's the first thing you do?
The first thing we do is walk up to the structure, of course. We make contact with a female outside that we later find out is Lynlee Renick. She's hysterical. So we go into the building and we start searching for this snake that is allegedly on the loose.
And was EMS already there?
Yes, they were.
Did you observe Ben Renick's body?
Yes, I did.
At some point, did you clear the house? Or
Yeah.
clear the building?
Yes,
And that was because you're still looking for this snake, is that right?
that is correct.
And eventually, do you determine that there is in fact not a snake on the loose?
That is correct.
And at some point, does Dave Colbert arrive on scene?
Yes, he does.
Who is Dave Colbert?
Dave Colbert is the Montgomery County coroner.
And after Mr. Colbert arrives, at some point, are you given information that this is not a snake attack, that this is a homicide, or quite possibly a homicide?
Yes, after Coroner Colbert examines the body.
And so then you clear the structure, and it's now a crime scene, is that right?
That is correct.
Nothing further.
Cross.
Deputy, good morning. It was not Lynlee that said it was a snake, right? It was Sam Renick.
That is correct.
Now, you were not involved in the investigation of the Renick homicide, is that correct?
Correct.
Your knowledge is limited to just that very first night.
Yes, sir.
You did not take any property from the scene.
No, sir.
You were not given any property by anybody else.
No, sir.
No one reported any tips to you or anything like that, right?
No, sir. Correct.
You were basically there just to maintain security on the scene, right?
Yes, sir.
And you're trained to document suspicious things in your reports, right?
Yes, sir.
And you actually did document something that you thought at the time was suspicious, right?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
I had spoken to Sam, which is Ben's brother, and he had mentioned that Ben was in the midst of some kind of monetary deal with a gentleman, I don't know who, and he made the comment that Ben was cheap, I believe is how it was said.
Okay, that was suspicious and you documented it.
Correct.
And Sam has been cleared of any wrongdoing at all in this case, right?
As far as I'm aware, yes.
Okay. And you documented all the relevant facts that you saw that night, right?
Yes.
And everything in your report, I think you said was true and accurate and all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you documented in your report that Lynlee Renick was hysterical?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's never changed?
No.
Okay. No one ever came up to you that night and said that she might be faking it or anything like that, correct?
Not from what I recall, no.
Okay. And you were deposed this year, correct?
That is correct.
For the benefit of the jury, can you explain what a deposition is and kind of what happens there?
Deposition is the defense attorney or attorneys will cross-examine the witness and get a record of our best recollection of events on a particular crime scene or incident that may have taken place.
Thank you. Very good. Now, do you remember being asked on a scale of 1 to 10 how hysterical Lynlee Renick was?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how hysterical was Lynlee Renick or distraught do you recall saying?
I would say, from what I recall, I believe I said a 10.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yes, sir.
And you also had a body camera
That is correct.
that recorded all her being hysterical that night.
Yes, sir.
And I want to change topics, Deputy. There were a lot of people, right?
Yes.
And there were a lot of people, so Sam Renick was there.
Yes.
There were several EMT paramedics there.
Yes.
There were 3 or 4 firefighters there.
That's correct.
You were there.
Yes.
Brian McGowan, another officer, was there.
Yep.
There were then a couple of highway patrol investigators.
Yes, sir.
The sheriff of Montgomery County, Matt Shue, was there.
Yes.
Then there were a Snake employee and his father, John and William Philippek.
Yes.
And then I think there were 10 or 12 people actually inside the facility at one point in time, right?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, so a lot of people are looking at Lynlee Renick.
Yes.
Fair?
That's fair.
Okay, and they're observing her and they're watching her all night, right?
Yes.
Nobody pulled you aside and said she's acting suspicious or she smells like something or anything like that?
Not from what I recall.
You would have documented if they had done that, right?
Yes, sir.
Just like you documented Sam being suspicious.
Yes, sir.
So 20 people or so watching this woman and not one of them says anything suspicious to you.
Correct.
Now, you also testified excuse me, about people who are on methamphetamine and how they act, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said they lack judgment, is that true?
Yes, sir.
And you come into contact with meth users a lot in your job?
Fairly frequently, yes, sir.
Okay. And you also, I asked you about an individual named Brian Higginbotham.
Yes, sir.
Who's Brian Higginbotham?
Brian Higginbotham is a person that I've had many professional contacts with due to his usage of methamphetamine and other illicit substances.
Could I have 1 moment, Your Honor?
Yep.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You got a reread?
Yes, sir. How long were you on the scene with Lynlee Renick?
A few hours from what I recall.
Was she hysterical the entire time you were on scene?
After the initial hysterics, as time went on, she was less hysterical, yes.
So she wasn't, by the time you left, she wasn't as hysterical as she was when you showed up, right?
Correct.
And I don't know, I wasn't counting how many people Mr. Houseman said were there, but I think about 20 first responders and other people, is that right?
Give or take, yes.
At any time, did you hear Lynlee Renick tell any of those 20 people that Michael Humphrey murdered her husband?
No.
Nothing further, Judge.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, may this witness be finally excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you so much. You can step down.
Thank you.
I'd like to give him a break around 10:30. You got like a 15-minute witness? However,
My next one will not even
I mean, it doesn't have to
15
be
minutes.
right at 15.
Yeah, my next one is real short.
Okay, call
Perfect. The state calls Dave Colbert, Your Honor. Colbert.
Come right on through there and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you will now give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Have a seat right there.
Can you state your name, please?
My name is David Martin Colbert.
How are you employed, Mr. Colbert?
I am the Montgomery County Coroner, and I am also the administrator for Montgomery County Ambulance District.
How long have you been the coroner in Montgomery County?
Almost 21 years.
And were you called on June 8th of 2017 regarding the death of Ben Renick?
Yes, I was.
And you, I assume, responded to Renick Reptiles then, the facility where he was found deceased?
Yes, I did.
Prior to your arrival, did you have any information regarding the possible cause of death?
My dispatch being to deal with a snake, that someone had done that, or killed that way. And then on the way to the scene, I met the ambulance supervisor of the day on the roadway who stopped me and informed me that there was an individual at the scene that had been deceased by the axe of a snake.
Okay, so when you arrived, can you describe what position was Ben Renick in when you showed up?
When I showed at the scene or inside the reptile building,
Correct.
He was in there on his back. He was covered up with a sheet.
And is it your understanding that he was originally found face down?
According to the statement that was made by Sam Renick, the deceased brother, he said he found him in face down position and then rolled him over to assess for life to see if there was resuscitative measures needed.
And you then begin your investigation, I assume?
Yes, ma'am.
I forgot to ask this question. He was covered with a white sheet, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that part of the crime scene, or was that placed there by EMS?
That was placed there by EMS prior to my arrival.
Okay. So when you conduct your investigation, did you observe anything that led you to believe this is in fact not a snake attack?
Yes, ma'am. As I approached the body, we were still under the pretense that this was a snake attack, and so whenever I entered there, we came to the body. I removed the sheet from the foot to the head and then observed the body. I crouched down to take a closer look, and when I did this, I then saw some divots in the floor. I also saw some injury to the face that I would say was more consistent with not a snake injury, but a gunshot wound. And then I saw a shell casing on a shelf just above the decedent's head.
And after you located the shell casing, did you notify law enforcement that this is a crime scene now?
I immediately asked at the room any non-essential personnel, i.e. fire and EMS, who had followed me in, to remove the body of Mr. Renick from the scene. I asked that they be excused from the room and law enforcement, and that's when I informed law enforcement that I believe there was some other circumstances that at play.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 97. Do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am. This is a Missouri State death certificate.
For Ben Renick?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it fair and accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I move to admit State's Exhibit 97.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
97 be admitted, and then you want to put it on there?
Please.
Okay, just a second.
Can you see that on the screen in front of you, Mr. Colbert?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you the person who completes this death certificate?
I do. There is a portion of it, yes, that I do
And
perform.
what did you determine to be the manner of death?
The manner of death is to be homicide.
And the cause of death?
The cause of death is multiple gunshot wounds. It's hard to read from here.
Would you like the hard copy with that?
Please. It's tough being blind. Multiple gunshot wounds with extensive injury to the brain and brain stem. Thank you.
Nothing further, Judge.
Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Colbert, Lynlee Renick was visibly upset at the scene.
Yes.
That's what you documented in your report.
Yes, sir. His head located on the shelf.
And you found that within 15 seconds.
After I located, within 30 seconds, yes.
Nothing further. What? Okay, I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Nothing.
Okay, nothing. Did this witness be finally excused?
As far as I'm concerned, yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, sir. You're finally excused. You can step down. Let's take a break. I know you heard this Friday. Is that when we were over there? But I'm gonna read it to you again, and it's gonna be shorter after this, okay? It's the court's duty to instruct you now upon a matter about which you will be reminded at each recess or adjournment of court. Until this case is given to you to decide, you must not discuss any subject connected with the trial among yourselves or form or express any opinion about it. And until you are discharged as jurors, you must not talk with others about the case or permit them to discuss it with you or in your hearing. Your decision must be based only on the evidence presented to you in the proceedings in this courtroom. You should not research this case on the internet or by any other means. You should not read, view, or listen to any newspaper, radio, or TV report of the trial. The bailiff and other officers of the court are not permitted to talk to you about any subject connected with the trial, and you're not permitted to talk to them about it. The attorneys representing the state and the defendant are under a duty not to do anything that may even seem improper. Therefore, at recesses and adjournments, they'll avoid saying anything to the jury except perhaps something like good morning or good afternoon. In doing that, they don't mean to be unfriendly, but are simply doing their best to avoid even an appearance that might be misunderstood that they or you are doing anything improper. The same applies to witnesses and to the defendant. They have been or will be instructed to avoid all contacts with the jury, even to talk about matters wholly unrelated to the case. Are they going to get menus during this break? You already got them? All right. That's it. Take a break. We'll see you in a minute, okay? Just let me know when they're done. All right, we're in recess probably about 10 minutes.